It's our old pal Joey Mulinaro. What's the poopians?
Oh, Dave, so good to be here. It is really surreal times. It feels like a fever dream that we're living through here with the conversation actually being reality now of, like you mentioned, Russell Wilson or Aaron Rodgers starting quarterback for the Pittsburgh Steelers. That's what it's looking like. And I feel like Ian Rappaport or Adam Schefter right now, just as you, we got NFL Network right here ready to break away as soon as we find the news, which feels imminent, does it not?
Helpless as we await our fate, our collective fate as black and gold supporters here. Consider me at the moment, if you haven't picked up on it in the last few minutes or over the last couple of years, I'm positively sick in my balls at the prospect of this conspiracy theorist weirdo who is washed up coming to the Pittsburgh Steelers. He's someone else's legend. I wasn't happy. You may recall a year ago when Russell Wilson, someone else's legend. I get it. If you're desperate, if you're one of those franchises and all that matters is finally wrangling one of them Lombardis or relevance in whatever your sport is, so be it. I sit in a position of luxury as a Pittsburgh Steelers fan. We have a lot of Lombardis in the building already. We don't need to reach. We don't need to flail about. That's the franchise. Here's the issue, though, Joey. I feel like I'm surprised by where we sit right now to the degree that it felt like 2 months ago, Mike Tomlin had his come to Jesus moment, come to Jesus season, which was, since Roethlisberger got hurt, I can game the NFL. I don't need to have one of those high-end quarterbacks to keep my team relevant. Watch how I knuckleball the sport and bring all those superhero QBs back to our level, and we make some hay. And I think he thought, it's pretty clear he did, oh, we have Russell Wilson. Now we're ready to roll. We're going to make some noise in January. They did what they have done since Roethlisberger's elbow injury. Get into the playoffs and then get blown out and be shown to not be anywhere close to on the level of the actually good teams out there. I thought that was his thing. And in fact, he went to the podium 2 months ago and said, basically, we got to get out of this cycle of the retread vet quarterbacks. We've got to find our long-term answer there. I think they got worked over. The con artist has a cool nickname. I still think the jury may be out on how good a GM he is. And by the way, don't lose sight of the fact these are Mike Tomlin's decisions ultimately. Khan is acting on those, but it's not like Khan is the one who's coming up with who should be our quarterback. Tomlin is doing it, and then Khan is supposed to go and make these things happen. I can't imagine this is the spot that they wanted to be in on Monday afternoon on the start of free agency. Sorry for the long-winded wind-up there, but I'm positively caught up in my feelings right now.
As you should be. I mean, I tweeted it after the Bengals home loss in the finale. I said this is a franchise going nowhere, and it's a franchise that's not going to change. And, I kind of just put it out there. I tried to keep quiet a little bit this past year. I tried to just stay positive. But after that went down, I had to say that because it was heading in the direction of everything you just mentioned. We knew what was going to happen the next week in Baltimore, and it happened exactly that way. And we knew how the offseason was going to go. They would talk after that loss in the playoffs. But yeah, we got to change. It'd be insane not to change. Not a lot's changing on anything of the coaching staff, anything like that. The only thing that's changing is really the thing that's staying the same is just no answer at quarterback, no idea really how to attack anything offensively, right? Just the same kind of mindset, and it's really disheartening, Dave. And that's why it's like when DK Metcalf got traded there last night, a bunch of people were texting me, and I should have texted you, but I saw you tweeted about your heart's aflutter. And I told Ben before we recorded here, I said, okay, yeah, on one hand, I'm excited because it's a splash. I'm excited because it seems to be bucking a trend of, hey, the Steelers don't do this typically. That's not how they operate. Big moves offensively, paying offensive players, making a big splash in the offseason. But then I pull myself back and I say, yeah, a lot of times when you're making moves like that in the offseason, the splash move in March or April, it doesn't typically translate in October, November, December, right? And what has the Steelers done? What have the Steelers done in the past 5 years, certainly, almost to the past decade, that's really shown you that, yeah, this is going to go well. This is going to work out with these two personalities potentially in the room with George Pickens and DK Metcalf, but then also, have they shown you anything that's going to be able to say, yeah, we're going to be able to dial up stuff to make DK Metcalf really a factor in this offense? Everybody says, oh, it's going to be this two-head monster of Pickens and Metcalf, and then you're going to have Freiermuth over the middle. How long have we been waiting for them to use the middle of the field? I'm not convinced it's ever going to happen. Not under this regime, that's for certain. And then you have the two offensive players right there, Pickens and Metcalf. I have no faith because there's been nothing to show that they're going to be able to utilize the skills that they have on the offensive side of the ball. Now, they didn't have that many skills on the offensive side of the ball last year, but that's just kind of where I'm at. I think it's a splash. I don't know if it's a good splash or a bad splash. I think it's...
I am really... on the razor's edge here. Devil's Dameshek can tell you these things, glass half full or however you want to regard them. They are real close in this sense. What I think has been overstated is, as the season wound down and the team fell apart and all the rest of it is, do you see now how far off the roster is from what the Ravens and the Bills and the Chiefs
Eagles
are? I disagree with that. I think it's fairly close. It's a little, it wasn't ripened yet, but that offensive line is going to transform from a deficient unit to a position of strength by September. I mean, people, a lot of it depends upon Broderick Jones developing. He has to arrive, and that's a big assumption at this point, given where we are with him.
And we only saw one game of Fatanu. He's coming off an injury. He looked good, but
I'm assuming because that was sort of the vibe was, boy, for whatever reason, the rookie is further along than the sophomore is. And right. I think we're assuming that Troy's going to be good. And now is Brojo going to rise up? But I think if he does, and we saw enough flashes from him in his rookie season more than last year, that if they settle him into one spot, that hopefully that develops. And then that's a position of strength. And as you just saw, the obsession in the QB league, and it rightly exists. If you don't have the guy at quarterback, you're probably nowhere. You also see at the exact same time that Jalen Hurts just won the Super Bowl. He's in nobody's top 3 or 4 quarterbacks, but I think he's firmly now in everybody's top 10. So, it doesn't have to be necessary, but there is also the Jaden Daniels of it, which is drop him on a team that was rudderless, a punchline kind of a team a year ago at this point. I know they made other moves. Obviously, Dan Quinn comes in to stabilize and they make other moves. But the headline is they drafted a quarterback and transformed themselves and played in the title game when they were a joke a year ago. So that's out there. What I don't think is going to happen, what I know is not going to happen, is that the Steelers are going to move heaven and earth to trade way up to resolve this issue long term, not just for one season or two, and try to get Cam Ward. Maybe they want to do something and maybe the board sets up for them that at 21 Shedeur Sanders is there. It's another matter of whether or not they like Shedeur, if they want to get into the very particular Deion's son of it. That's going to be an element there. I hate to put you on the spot with the impressions, but I would love to hear if you could get this one, not on this show, but if it goes that way, that Shedeur gets there by September, you will need to have Deion Sanders, but with a Yinzer accent. Dave, he's going to go get pastrami. I don't know. I don't know. That's too much for me. I don't know. How dare I try to enter into that space?
No,
talking to you right now.
That would be really. It would be Tomlin, and I can't do a Tomlin, but just what he would say, what a meeting would look like between Coach T and Deion Sanders. Closed door meeting between the two of them. That's something that would need to be tackled.
Coach, Yins need to play Shedeur.
They wouldn't even be. I mean,
do not care.
It wouldn't even be. There would be so much being said without anything being said. It would be very, very fascinating between the two of them.
As we talk about Rodgers to the Steelers, and who knows, but I just think it's a terrible idea on so many levels. He's clearly washed. He resolves nothing unless it's the same thing I said about Russ a year ago. is he, what does it do other than to provide comfort to Mike Tomlin and Omar Khan and to the organization to have some short-term solve that doesn't really solve the Lombardi list woes or anything like that? What it might get you is a playoff win, maybe even two. And then that would be kind of exciting for a month, for the month of January. But do you think 41-year-old Aaron Rodgers is going to vanquish Mahomes and Arrowhead or Josh Allen or Lamar Jackson? And if the answer is no to that, then there's no value in doing it. All it does is kick it down the road and say it's sort of a specific response to from Tomlin to his critics, like you don't win enough or don't win at all in January. He wants to check that box. I think that was the goal with Russ. I also think he really did think in mid-December. It'd be one thing to think it in July, but I think he and people in the organization and out thought, boy, Russell Wilson and the Steelers, they might really do some damage in the AFC playoffs, which I said at the time was laughable, and I was right. The fact of the matter is, I think they're a whisker better with Rodgers in football terms, but you see the mess he causes, and by the time you would get to December or January, they could be so far off the rails that it would be moot. That it's like, well, he's a better thrower of the football. So what? He brings so much other nonsense into the equation that it's irrelevant.
You were on this because I listened and I follow, and I think maybe that's why I just feel so spurned, because I was one of those after that Bengals game on the road when they put up 40-some points. I know they had to scoop and score. But, I mean, I was looking at it right there, Dave, and I said, man, if not now with this squad and what we just saw and the ability, Justin Fields wasn't doing that. Kenny Pickett wasn't going to do that. Even Mason Rudolph wasn't going to do that. And I thought, I did not go to the Super Bowl, but I was like, it may be round 2, round 3. I don't know. They forced a turnover or two with the way that Russ was slinging it right there. He's hitting Calvin Austin in the seam, and I was. And so I think that's why what transpired then from there, I can't give in. I can't get excited about anything. Certainly not about Aaron Rodgers. Certainly not about Russell Wilson coming back. Then what are they going to do with this plan? Are they going to, you see all of a sudden Aaron Rodgers is going to be the guy, and then they're going to draft Jackson Dart, or they're going to draft Jalen Milroe, or, it's like, what?
I bet you that, well, see, first of all, my pushback is what I said in advance of what you said. So to what end? If they would have won that game, where would the Steelers sit now? We probably would be, if Russell Wilson had won a game, if let's say that he went to Charm City and they won in the wild card and didn't shame themselves in round 2, it would be probably a foregone conclusion that Russ would be back. And I probably same situation with Justin Fields, but what has that gotten you to do that? As I cautioned in whatever that was, week 7, week 8, when they were sitting at 4-2 and Justin Fields wasn't individually, statistically, or otherwise setting the world afire. Also, Art Smith, because Mike Tomlin insisted upon this course, which was the priority was don't screw up. Just don't turn the ball over. Do nothing. Play real safe. Be a figure skater. If you're going to do a triple axel, just make sure you land. I don't care if you look good doing it. Just make sure you don't screw anything up. Was the command given to Justin Fields. Then they yanked him at 4-2. I said, there's a decent chance. Remember all the praise? Look at what a pro Justin Fields is. Look at how he's handled it. He kept his powder dry, which is exactly what I said he was doing. He's a professional. His agent, or maybe the guy in the mirror, told him, like, there's no value in me belly aching. Like, how dare you yank me, team? He was in an unstable situation as a starting quarterback in the NFL. He had not proven much of anything and still hasn't. So to complain and say, how dare you yank me, wouldn't have gone over for anybody. And look, he came through clean on the other side, except for now he's on the New York Jets. So that's kind of dirty. But, he positioned himself as like, look, I'm not an issue in the locker room. I'm not going to complain because you're sitting me down. That's what NFL teams like to hear. A bellyacher is not what they want to hear, which probably has diminished George Pickens' value if the Steelers are in fact trying to shop him around. What I will say in the short term, I think it's been overstated by Dan Orlovsky and many others. This is the thing we kind of get into, is when you decide this offense is more of a pass-happy one, this one wants to grind you out a little bit. They're all NFL teams in the 21st century. They're going to throw the ball at least 20, 25 times a game. The idea that, like, well, why would DK Metcalf want to be on the Steelers if Justin Fields or someone like that is the quarterback? That doesn't make any sense. You want a thrower, you want to go to a thrower like, man, he's going to get some targets. And what it does is if you run that severe run-based offense, it opens you up as a wideout to get those targets. And the double down, imagine we are based around, we're an NFL team, forget the color scheme and the logos and everything else. What if I told you there's a team that has a plus offensive line with a good 1-2 punch at running back, which the Steelers will have once they draft a running back round about round 3 or 4, somewhere to go along with Jaylen Warren. And they have two guys that are great combat catch guys. One has wheels like few others have ever had in the sport. On the other guy, it doesn't matter if he's all covered up. If you've got him singled up, it's probable that good things are going to happen if you throw it in his direction. That sets up to be a pretty tough offense. And so blindly, I would say, yeah, 40-year-old guy who's accurate and is on time is probably going to succeed in that offense. The problem with Rodgers is that he has, his predecessor in Green Bay, Brett Favre. Everybody makes the same jokes about went to the Jets and maybe back to the Vikings, and Rodgers was floated there over the last few days and all of that. The difference is Favre didn't destroy the New York Jets in his one season there. I mean, Aaron Rodgers ruined the relationship with the Packers, who were in a perfectly stable. I mean, he would have been just fine playing out the rest of his days. But nope, that wasn't good enough. Then he went to go to the Jets. Then he drags all those pieces. He had to have Lazard and all those guys over with him. And it was an absolute abject flop. And Joe Douglas lost his job, and Woody Johnson has egg on his face, and all the rest of it, and the coaching regime change. That's what the Steelers want to bring in on purpose? Did you not just see what happened? The idea that, but we're more stable. We're better than what the Jets are. Boy, you're really rolling the dice on how much more stable you are. And I completely get it because it's Woody Johnson's Jets. But also, he's going to be a year deeper into life. He's 41. There's very little evidence of guys at that age succeeding.
Right. It's not Brady. But I love this idea, too, that you were talking about. How, okay, well, you bring in Aaron Rodgers for a year, and you just draft Jackson Dart 21, as if the whole thing with Rodgers about Jordan Love, them taking Jordan Love, that was the whole deal, right? It's like you didn't react well to that.
I have things to teach you.
Right, like what is? I mean, it's just it's insane, as Hinch always says on this pod, and yeah, to your point about. What Orlovsky or whoever says about the Steelers. I mean, no matter what happens, every time it's going to come to the season, and on Sunday Night Football, and when the Steelers inevitably play on their one of 3 of those performances, inevitably it's going to be a counselor saying, you want the Pittsburgh Steelers to run the football and to grind it out. That's what you think of when you think of the Pittsburgh Steelers, right? Like, that is what's going to happen. Me and my family talk about that still. It's insane. It's like, okay, that national brand, that national audience, they always try to peddle that down everybody's throat. It's like, no, I don't want to be ground and pound in 3 yards of cloud of dust and not throw it over the middle of the field because Tomlin wants to, or because that's what they did with Franco Harris, God rest his soul, back in the 70s. But that's going to happen, and that's what they're going to hear. So I really don't know, Dave. I don't know where I'm at other than I'm going to support this team and I'm going to ride it with them, but I just don't.
That's not your obligation. I think this is an important philosophical thing to address. I said it to Browns fans 2 years ago, 3 years ago. Say it to Jets fans, say it to anybody. You root for the team and you can be loyal and all of that. But the idea that you have to be vocally or otherwise or in your heart supportive of bad decisions. The idea that you, as a Browns fan, like Myles Garrett, I don't know if you heard, he's dyed in the wool Browns guy through and through, loves him, never would think of leaving town, especially if you pay him $500 million. Right. He 2 years ago, or I'm sorry, 4 months ago or thereabouts, when the Browns were really when they had revealed themselves to once again be in the midst of another Brown season, said like, the fans need to support us, and it's not cool to not support Deshaun Watson. Like, we don't have to cheer for bad guys if we don't want to.
I forget.
And I know the Aaron Rodgers thing. Eddie Spaghetti and I, you listen, we appreciate Joey listens to the show. Eddie Spaghetti and I have gone back and forth about that. Bad guy, not a criminal or anything like that, but disruptive to your football environment. And it's hard to debate that at this point, that's exactly what happens.
Yeah, I forget when you did the Steelers debrief with Brooke Pryor and who was the fella that you
Tim
had
Benz.
Tim Benz. He said it better than anybody I think I've heard about Coach T and where we are now in 2025 of this kind of drunk on power Coach T and seemingly just wanting to manipulate everything in what it feels like to me as any way that he can to save face, to stay, oh man, Coach T, he just, you know with that guy, what you're getting, and he's never going to have a losing season, and man, he needs to be applauded. He said on your show, I've never seen a fireman get so much praise for starting so many fires. Do you remember that? Do you remember when Ben said that?
Of course, I do. It's exactly right.
And I was exactly like, yes, right. that is it. Because what's going to happen?
Come apart. They need to have an act 3 in an action movie kind of rally and go, let's get it together now. Now's the moment. And it always is that. And we make this furious run to the playoffs that amounts to nothing in the big picture. But if you're imbued in the story of the season, it's super exciting. And I've gotten caught up in that a few times since Robert.
Sure. Absolutely. It's fun along the way. But then it just drives you nuts when then come January, like clockwork, rinse and repeat. You got your folks who are on national TV or the national radio or national journalist or whatever, and it becomes about a whole thing of instantly before the playoff game is even over. The Coach Tomlin arguments start coming out, and here we go. The cycle starts again. And then he gets a guy like Russell Wilson or Aaron Rodgers, and here we go. And hey, man, you can never knock what Coach Tomlin does with his guys, man. It's like, no, we're just delaying the inevitable, and we have no real plan. That's what it is. There is no real plan except to seem like we have a plan.
It's solving something that I'm trying to think of the analogy. You know, it's something like if Hawkeye and Black Widow level superheroes have a fight, they can handle something, but then it wouldn't be like the Survivor, like, oh, I beat that superhero. Now let me get into the mix with Thanos. It's like, whoa. The Steelers survived the Bengals and Browns, and then we're like, who's next? Patrick Mahomes? Like, you ain't ready for that. Like, what you're solving works at one level. It does not rise. It's sort of like, certain kinds of offense that work in college just don't work in the NFL kind of thing. You can't get away with the same thing just because it worked at one level. It works within the AFC North and having a punchline team always there to play twice. And the Bengals aren't much better over the last half century. The Ravens are formidable, but I mean, the Steelers in their neighborhood have remained one of the perennial bullies, but it has less and less impact in the AFC at large.
Well, I think too, I mean, still nobody's talking about, sure, the trade for DK Metcalf. All right, maybe it's going to be Aaron Rodgers. Are we just forgetting that 300 yards of rushing just right up your rear end in the playoffs? I mean, what are the actions? What steps are being taken there or are going to be taken there? Gave up a second-round pick that could be a top 30 player, a defensive lineman.
It's funny you say that because that's exactly right. So I was thinking, as I said, and they can also draft a runner to complement Jaylen Warren or maybe replace him as the number one. But now you're really getting down to it if you're going to use a first round pick, which now seems a little more reasonable than it did a year ago because of the breakouts of some rookie runners play and then Saquon and Derrick Henry and all that. It makes it a little less kooky to use a first round pick than when the Steelers did on Najee Harris. It presents as different. But now are you still in the position to do that now that you've given away that second pick to get a skill position guy when there is still the evidence provided by the Eagles of if you don't have the guy, The way to offset that is to really load up at the line of scrimmage. This is a interior defensive lineman draft by all accounts, so maybe that's where you get some value in the first round there. Bottom line, the DK Metcalf thing. You're uninspired by it? It's funny because the show we did last week with Hench at the end of the week, Hench brought him up that DK Metcalf to his Patriots had come up, and he said he just wasn't excited about it, although he knows his Pats need it. There's something about DK Metcalf that isn't exciting, which is ironic because he's as splashy a wide receiver as the NFL has, but I also get it. It seems like he's got a TO thing of like fumbles, drops passes that are routine catches, and so on and so forth that are damaging. How say you?
Totally. And it's funny when Hinch was going on about that last week, and I was listening to that, and I was like, yeah, that's fair. Like, I know the Steelers have been circled with him a lot, and I remember thinking at one point I'd be excited, but now that Hinch is saying this, I'm like, yeah, I don't know. I don't know. Again, like I said, a splash. It's a splash. Sometimes a splash gets the ladies wet that are right by the pool. You know, like sometimes a splash can be a bad thing. Like
working blue, Mulinaro. I love it.
No. Like actually, they're laying there and it gets them wet. I know it didn't come out the best way.
No, I came.
So
out.
It's. I don't want to say uninspiring because again, on one hand,
it is inspiring. Is it just flashy with no substance? Is it lick-a-making?
Yeah, I mean, to be seen, right? I mean, because I can't say, but right now, and March 13th or March 10th or whatever, I mean, right now, I'm like, okay, until I see how it works.
Here's the point. I don't think you need to have this deep core of receivers that are, taking up a massive amount collectively of the cap. DK Metcalf's going to do that all by himself. I do think that they're set up. The formula is right. I think they kind of have it right that you have this guy now taken care of for the next handful of years, who's your number one, and then you fill in around him, assuming George Pickens isn't back after this season, if he even plays this year. I do think a guy like that, the downside, the notion behind George Pickens, now you got to trade him because he's going to be a ne'er-do-well because he won't like having to give up targets to a guy who's, more gifted than he is or on par with him and all of that sort of thing. He's in a contract year. And if you buy that he is deeply selfish and doesn't care about team results, all he cares about is how he plays, well, then this is when you want him in a contract year because he is going to perform to put the best possible tape out there for his suitor. So I think that that's actually good, and that's why you do keep him. And by the way, talk about a redshirt season. Roman Wilson, who they drafted in the third round from Michigan, who should be, open at the sticks guy, shifty more than raw speed guy. I mean, that's a pretty nice pass catchers plus Calvin Austin plus Pat Freiermuth.
It is, but I feel like it's strictly going to go one of two ways. There is not going to be anywhere close to a middle ground, and what I mean is that in the ideal world, it's going to be George Pickens in a contract year and DK Metcalf happy because he's getting paid, and Arthur Smith can finally have the too high safety look, and he can pound it with this new young running back that they take, maybe a first rounder, and finally Freiermuth will be able to use the open in the middle of the field, which we've still been waiting on them to navigate and to use the middle of the field for however many years now, and it does. It all works out that way, and if all comes together with the offensive line, and Pickens and Metcalf are happy because they're getting singled up, but it's too high and all that. It works that way, great. Or Pickens is throwing fits, throwing his helmet. Him and Metcalf are getting into it on the sidelines. Freiermuth still doesn't even go anywhere near the middle of the field. Art Smith is trying to target Michael Pruitt still for some reason. Like, I don't feel like there's going to be a middle ground where they're like 10-7 again, and it's like a pretty solid.
Imagine, but by the way, you'll get probably to pretty close to the exact same record. But imagine carrot or the stick kind of effect of those receivers. Like either it'll be Russell Wilson in there, like, you guys are the best. That's okay. You dropped it. You're the best you're the best player I've ever seen. You're the best human being in the history of human beings. Or Aaron Rodgers berating you for your behavior. It's one or the other. Like, imagine Rodgers with George Pickens, the double down of two pains in the ass.
I also love that. So that's what I think is like it's not there might not like this is no way in hell going to work out to where I said like it's like a 10 maybe 11 win, but it's like a 10-win season, and they have that first round exit, and it kind of just goes down the crapper like it did the past few years. Or it'll be like, oh, it finally does work, and they win a playoff game in January. But it's not going to be anywhere happy medium at all. It's going to be a disaster down the stretch with those personalities, or it's going to be. But I think like you're talking about Russ and how positive he is, and for a while there, I was like, you know what? I kind of buy into it. I think he is just like that positive of a guy until I saw the clip that. After the Bengals home finale, where they lost their 5th straight game, and he's going around in the middle of the field the second that game ends, and is going up to Cam Hayward and is like, let's go win the next 4. Let's go win the next 4. Hey, we're going to win the next 4. Okay. Now I'm like, I'm out. That you cannot tell me that you, the most positive person in the world, that at that point is just unrealistic and just insane. Like, I don't know how Cam Hayward didn't take off his helmet and Myles Garrett, Russell Wilson right there for saying something so asinine in the moment after losing 4 straight games, getting your behind handed to you 3 games in a row, and then losing your finale and another putrid performance. For him to come up to you at midfield the second the game ends and say that, I was out. I was like, nope, that does it for me.
I 100% agree. I think if you hooked him up to a lie detector, Cam Hayward probably would agree too, although he said, I want Russ and Fields back for 2025. But in that moment, he's like, you could feel like, not now. Not now, Russ. Now's not the time.
Maybe in the locker room after everything's said and done, and you guys are just like, hey, man, come on. Let's try to rally.
Him. It's enough. And he has to have some guilt because let's not forget, Cam Hayward did campaign Russ to do this. And really, to close out our conversation about it, I mean, I do think that how this, no one wants to go see a movie when you know how it ends, although I guess we do go see superhero movies with the expectation that the superhero is going to win in the end. And this would be then going to see a superhero movie where your superheroes aren't going to win in the end. They're going to like, maybe they could beat Hawkeye, but they ain't gonna beat the really powerful teams. I need to summon a good Marvel bad guy who isn't that powerful. Who would that be? Who am I thinking? Like Doc Ock. Doc Ock you could defeat, but it doesn't mean you can beat Thanos. Hulk, right? See,
you're asking the wrong guy here because I'm not a Marvel dude, really. I don't have anything against it. I just haven't. You can't get me down the roster on Marvel.
IndyCar.
we could go down that road. Yeah, we could go down that road. Hey, Star Wars, you know me. I'm right there. We could do that.
I don't know the bad guys. Yeah, I don't know the bad. Okay. All right, then who is like I always say human, but they're not human, really, because they're from another galaxy. It assumes a great deal that they're human. But okay, like in Rogue One, the main bad guy who goes to the island, goes to the remote island. He's great. Like you could beat him, but that doesn't mean you can beat Vader.
Right. For the hardcore Star Wars fan, not to say I know you're a hardcore Star Wars fan. I'm just saying I know you probably haven't watched like the animated stuff, but did you watch the Kenobi series?
I didn't.
Oh, well, the Inquisitors. The Inquisitors, right? You have they're kind of they're doing Darth Vader's dirty work after Revenge of the Sith. They're force sensitive people who go out and try to be soldiers for Darth Vader and the Emperor.
I'm listening.
The real dogs, right? The Chiefs and the Eagles. Then the Inquisitors are they're the Broncos and the Bengals.
The Steelers.
And the Steelers. Yeah, we're the Inquisitors now. No longer are the days of Darth Vader, unfortunately. We are the Inquisitors.
You know what? We've talked enough football. I have this to bring up, the game of life, but the fictional game of life. Yesterday, I'm flipping the dials, and what's on in the year of the Lord 2025 on a random Sunday is Indecent Proposal. And this movie, I got hot all over again about it. Not in a good way either. What kind of movie is this? Have you seen the picture? You've never seen Indecent Proposal?
No, and that makes me think I got to catch up on those Hackman movies you're talking about. They all sounded really good.
More is they're poor. but he's aspirational. He's this aspirational but broke architect is Woody Harrelson. And they
Okay.
go to Vegas to try and make money and out of desperation. And they meet multimillionaire Robert Redford while there. And he says, I'll give you $1 million to bed down with your wife one night. And they debate and really need the money. And she's like, all right, fine, I'll do it. She goes and does it. And they make sweet, sweet love. And then Woody can't hack it. Like, I can't believe we did this. You did this. And then she's like, I liked it too. And then that's why would you say that to me? And then they split. And then they're broke up. Then Redford decides, well, I liked her. I really like you. And now I want to be with you. And Demi Moore goes with him and they start to date. Like, wait, this guy paid for you. He's your John. Like, what the hell? Richard Gere did it with Roberts. Don't make it right. And then they eventually break up. And then she goes back to Woody Harrelson in the end. It makes no goddamn sense. It's so offensive, morally wrong. Spaghetti, you know this movie, right?
I unfortunately no. Same
You
camp as
son of
Joey.
a bitch. The both of you are bumps. The other thing I wanted to ask you about, Joey, because I know you are right at the cusp of this. You're a younger man than I, but father of two. I mean, I've obviously never met them. Looking forward to seeing Joey Mulinaro out here in Southern California for his Irvine show that I mentioned already. Thursday the 13th. Get your tickets ASAP. I look forward to bending the elbow with you at some point during your visit out here. But I've noticed even in the few years that we've known each other, half decade or thereabouts, you've become a father, not once but twice. Two darling little kids, really adorable little
Thanks,
ones.
pal.
I mean, that you're going to make them Purdue fans. I mean, could I weigh in on that? I could, but I'm not going to. I'm a gentleman.
Okay.
I don't think it's right, but that's your business.
Sure.
It's your house.
Mhm.
I've noticed though, as a young father, like you used to have longer blonde hair, but now, like as a father, it's creeping up, and your fashion hasn't exactly started to evolve and change. But I'm fully in it now. My boy Jean-Claude Van Dameshek, the other night we're out for dinner, and he has a new pair of jeans on, and they're like wide legs. And he's like, "This is what's in style now." And I'm like, "Do I have to now get rid of all the jeans I have to update to wide legs since this is the fashion of the day?" And then I thought, like, you're a middle-aged man, Dave. If you do that, you'll look like a jackass. But if I don't do that and I stick with the clothes that I wear, then I look like I'm outdated and I look like I'm some sort of antique from 1998. And I don't know if there's a correct answer. What are you going to do as you enter into this phase of life? Are you going to try to keep up with the fashions? Or are you just going to Samson it and like, listen, I have these are my clothes that I made it in and I'm sticking with them.
No, I'm fully in that phase. I am, hey, you know what? Fashion always comes back around. And so I know eventually what I'm wearing, my boy probably in 15, 20 years will be wearing the same thing. I'm fully in that. Somebody has a bit about like it's not mine. But somebody has a bit about how you're in whatever you wear as a senior in high school or like a senior in college. Like that is where you are fashion wise forever. And I'm glad that I'm at that point. But I know that I'm old, Dave, not because of that, but because I'm already generational guy. Like I'm already, when I see like a 17-year-old kid at a high school basketball game my wife coaches, I'm like, these goddamn kids, man. I was like that at one point. Oh my God, this is horrible. Right. And I already am pissed off thinking about my son being 16 and 17 and having floppy hair and thinking he knows better than me and whatever the fashion is. Like that's how I know I'm officially a dad and officially old. Is used to, I'd push back on my dad. I'd be like, hey man, that's just like how it goes. You know, you evolve, you change. And now I'm just like, I cannot believe this is how they are. It's insane.
Yeah, the phase, are you now, because your little girl's 1 year old,
Yeah.
are you in the mindset like it's so far down the line for you that the old joke is like, you aren't going on a date until you're 38 years old, or like, oh, you better come to my door, I'm going to have my shotgun and all that kind of stuff. The other side of that coin is to remember is you want your daughter and your son too, but you want your daughter to be popular enough that somebody's asking her, right? The thing you don't want is for your like son, you go into the prom like, girls don't talk to me, which was the conversation I had with my parents. You don't want that. You want your daughter to be asked, right? You want the Goldilocks effect.
We
right?
we had this conversation, I think, right before my little girl was born, and you brought this up again.
Did?
You brought it up the first time, and I was like, because I think I might have asked you for some advice about, because I know that you're a father of daughters. And so I was asking for your advice for that, and then you brought that up, and I'm thinking, yeah, the same thing. You know what kind of jackass your daughter's going to bring home if you're like, hey, I don't want you to do anything I don't want you to have any part to do with a guy, or how much of an asshole that kid's going to be if you're like cleaning your shotgun, like you said, or hey, poking your head in all the time. Like, you have to give him some space, because if you don't, then the kid's going to be a real tool. Right? Because your daughter's just trying to do it to get back at you, to spite you, right? And then, the worst thing of that outcome, besides him being a tool, is that she's heartbroken, and that you got to be the guy there to save her. So
I mean, I don't want trampiness, but I'll take that over crying alone silently. Like nobody asked.
So,
well, I would feel worse about that, I think. Be more heartbroken.
So where's the line drawn, with the encouragement? If it's if my little girl 17 years from now is heading out the door, go ahead.
I think what you don't want.
Go ahead and tug that down a little bit.
Worst, what I don't want is to be taking my daughter to the prom. I think I would be so heartbroken. I wouldn't be able to. I am the proudest escort. I just would cry the whole time. I feel so sad for you that this is what it came to, that you have to be here with this old food. And if I were cleaning my shotgun, if Dave the Jew were sitting there cleaning his shotgun to intimidate somebody, it would probably become less intimidating as soon as I shot off my index finger. Mulinaro, you're the best. I don't want to hold you up anymore. You have packing to do. You have a trip to make across football America to Southern California. I look forward
real quick. I had one more question about kids and fatherhood.
Yeah.
One more question. This is like you have thrown many first birthday parties now, right? Is this just a transgenerational thing, it transitions through generations, the color commentating that happens when the 1-year-old is having the birthday cake?
Nobody has captured the little moments and the conversations within them. I know you're doing stand-up as well, but your ability to capture those little scenarios, you do it better than anyone out there doing it right now. I mean, you really have mastered these small, uncomfortable moments that it is to wend your way through life as a single guy, as a married guy, a dating guy, married guy, and now as a father. You are the best at doing that. I really endlessly enjoy your mastery of those little moments. And in fact, me and Jean-Claude Van Dameshek and Oprah and I often act out. We call that guy Glenn, the guy who makes jokes but aren't funny. We do that all the time. The waiter, all the time. Like, we've talked about that one before. Like, the waiter's like, did we save a little room for dessert? Why the royal we? Why are we all in on it? You still working on that? Like, we can be more transactional. You don't have to attempt to be winsome, because you're losing me with this tone in your voice as though I'm a child. Just say, like, are you done eating? That would be much better for me. That's the level of interaction I want with the waiter.
Has that happened though? Have you found that the color commentating of the parents is that happened when early 2000s, mid 2000s?
I mean, I guess maybe I wasn't aware of it before then, but it definitely has been going on for a quarter century. Absolutely, yes. Like
when the cake gets set down in front of the baby, and everybody sits there and does he's thinking, they take it away from me by now. Yeah. That thing, that's...
I think he likes it.
Maybe push his face in. Oh, yeah, like everybody has to have their commentary on it. And I've just noticed that the 4 or 5 birthday parties that I've been at in the last year. of parents feeling the need to just speak their thoughts out loud to each other of what the baby is thinking at this point.
The thing you did a great one on a month or two ago was at the park while your kids are playing and you're standing there with another grown up. That is exactly right. It is the thing that I can't one of many things I can't stand in this world, but is the coaching of your child as though the person you're doing it for isn't there, which is like, Henry, what do we say? What do we say? Oh, go ahead now. Please say thank you to the man. Like, he hears you all. Like, this is the I don't need to be involved in your training session. Why I feel uncomfortable that I have to stand there and pretend to be like, why, you're welcome, little Henry. Like, I don't involve me.
I'm so guilty of that. It really is tough. What do we say?
Hey, we don't throw sticks now, do we?
Yeah.
Sticks, right?
I'm very guilty of it, and it's just a natural progression of life, I think. So, Spaghetti, I know you're getting hitched this summer, right? Is it this summer?
That's correct. End of June.
Yeah. And I'm sure that'll be, down the road maybe for you guys, and you'll do the same thing after you're sitting here with Joey and Dave and making fun of all those people. And, you just accept it. It's just part of life.
All right, listen, fun little 15-minute detour from grim reality that is pro football. Our team, I don't know. We don't have an answer, do we? We made it.
I was trying to refresh. I wasn't being rude during this. I kept just trying to refresh to see what I got.
I was hoping to catch lightning in a bottle and be able to make the announcement to the Shek Show audience of who the Steelers quarterback is going to be. It doesn't sound like it's going to be super inspiring. Maybe they have a surprise in store for us. Maybe they'll trade all the way up and go get Cam Ward. That's my dream. Shedeur Sanders maybe is in play now legitimately. Who's to say? I guess we'll have our answer. With our luck, we'll shut the mics down, and as soon as we do, it'll be announced, and you'll know the answer as you're listening.
I think that, we can just sum it up. It's like, if it's going to be Rodgers, if the news breaks after this show is recorded and goes live, it's pretty easy answer. We're both just kind of dejected by the entire thing. So we don't really have to recap what the breaking news is, because if that news is going to break, our answer.
And
right?
if you need me in the coming days, if that is the news, you can find me in a dark cave pooping somewhere.
Yep.
As
cool.
an homage to my new starting quarterback.